Chad Hasty Show, News Talk KFYO. Thank you very much for tuning in today. Joining us on the phones to, maybe we'll get into a little bit of Texas politics, also a lot of national politics to talk about. Joining us from the land where the homeless have taken over the sidewalks, it's Matt Mackowiak, our good friend, Republican strategist Matt Mackowiak. Matt, good morning. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Chad. Good morning.
You're not having to step over any homeless encampments near your sidewalk, are you?
No, fortunately, in my neighborhood, we don't have sidewalks on my side of the street, and we're up a pretty large hill.
Good.
So I think the odds of them, coming up on a daily basis and camping are pretty low. But I'm obviously pretty troubled by this absurd direction the city council's gone. Basically says that the homeless can camp in any public space, and that includes parks, city parks, but also public space, I guess, would be a city sidewalk. And so, look, that's been but mostly limited to downtown. But downtown is a tourist attraction. It's a huge economic driver for Austin. So we're hopeful the state will preempt this ridiculous policy at the next legislative session, but we're going to have to deal with it for the next year and a half, and that's going to be pretty rough.
And that's something the governor has already talked about, right, is coming in and preempting and forbidding cities from doing this.
That's right. Yeah, I mean he's been pretty aggressive since this happened. This happened after the legislative session finished. So yeah, I mean I think that as of now he's very interested in preempting it. But as I said, it's a year and a half away. I mean it's quite a ways away, and it wouldn't even take effect probably until June of 2021 or maybe even September of 2021. So, taxpayers here in Austin are going to have to deal with this for the next year and a half to 2 years.
Yeah, taxpayers and tourists, and it sounds like it's a big mess down there in Austin. But Matt, let's get into. I think this happened after I had you. Well, no, we did talk about it a little bit. I think when Jonathan Stickland had announced his retirement. It kind of kicked off this whole big, the reelection battles that are going to be out there for the Texas House and Texas Senate. As you've looked at it, how big of a danger are Republicans in of losing the Texas House in the upcoming election?
Oh yeah, I mean I think the threat is real. I think there's no question about that. There are going to be 15 or maybe 20 state house seats that are going to be hotly contested, and if the Democrats net 9 seats, they take the House back, and that means they elect a Democratic speaker, and that's going to significantly change the way the legislature works, and it's going to significantly limit the opportunities to pass important conservative reforms. Now, look, I don't think the number is really 9. I mean, I think Republicans are likely to pick up 3, 4, 5 seats that the Democrats picked up last time. So they're going to need more like 12 or 13 seats probably at the end of the day. They got some seats that they didn't really earn from the Beto wave and combining with straight ticket voting, which is now ending. So we'll see. I mean, it's still really early. We have a good sense of which seats are going to be at the top of that list, but things are going to move up and down depending on candidate recruitment, depending on retirements, which we haven't heard all that much about, Stickland being, the one exception to that. And also depending on fundraising and how these candidates compete and perform. And then lastly, it's all going to depend a lot, obviously, on the national political environment. Who the Democrats nominate, how that person performs in Texas, where the economy is, where Trump's numbers are. So a lot of variables. But yes, look, the Democrats, I think, are ultimately not going to go after the presidential election here in Texas. I don't think. Ultimately, they're going to compete all that strongly against Cornyn. I don't think they're going to go after Railroad Commissioner Ryan Sitton, who's the other statewide who's up. But they are going to go after probably 6 congressional seats, 1 state Senate seat, and 15 or 20 state House seats, some of which will be their incumbents, some of which will be Republican incumbents. So the action will be down ballot just a little bit, but there's going to be a lot of action in Texas in 2020.
Absolutely. Visiting with Matt Mackowiak here on the Chad Hasty Show. We go back to last week, Matt, and you had the first 2 Democrat debates, and if the CNN poll that came out yesterday is correct and right on, some big shifts happening in the Democrat race for 2020.
Yeah, and I've seen two polls taken since the debates ended. Now, keep in mind they ended on a Thursday night, and so you would be polling at the earliest on Friday night, but probably over the weekend. And generally, polling on the weekend is not all that reliable. So we want to kind of just put that out there as a caveat. But look, what I think is happening is Biden is losing a little bit of support. Looks like 8 to 10 points, perhaps, and that the lion's share of that is going to Senator Kamala Harris of California, who went after him directly on race issues and busing and segregation in the debate. And I think the CNN poll, I think she overtook Elizabeth Warren for third place. So, look, Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, and perhaps Pete Buttigieg, I think, are the 5 contenders for the nomination at this point. And I mentioned Buttigieg because he raised $25 million last quarter, which is this really significant haul. He may be outraised by Biden and Bernie, but that will. My guess is that will be it. So he's going to have enough money to be in this for the long haul, and he's going to get a real look. So I think that the takeaway from the debate really is Biden's not inevitable anymore. He was a weak front runner from the beginning. A lot of his strength in the polls, I think, was name identification or nostalgia for the Obama years among Democrats. He's going to have to up his game. He's going to have to respond more forcefully. He's going to have to be clearer and sharper in the debates. He's going to have to make the case he's electable, but also that he can, propose an agenda that Democrats will be excited about. And I think he was just kind of mediocre, or even maybe less than that, in the debate. It wasn't just about the interaction with Kamala Harris. He was kind of uneven and just not as sharp as he needed to be. If you're a front runner, the expectations are higher, and you have to perform at a high level. And he's been debating for 30 or 35 years, so we should have high expectations for him.
Well, it just doesn't seem like his heart's in it. It seems like he's going through the motions in that you see more fire from Elizabeth Warren. You see, obviously, a lot more fire from Kamala Harris. I saw more fire from Tulsi. It seemed like Biden is just – he finally got fired up near the end of the debate, but, people had a full hour to see Joe just kind of going through the motions.
Yeah, look, I think he's pretty I think candidly he's pretty uncomfortable with where the Democratic Party's headed. And I think he realizes that he is a man sort of out of step with where the energy of the party is. But I also think he really truly believes not only that he's qualified and ready to be president day one, but also that he's the strongest candidate to take on Trump. So, look, he's 76 years old, and let's be honest, when you're at that age, keeping the kind of schedule you have to keep when you're running for president is tough, and I'm sure it's taking a lot out of him even already, even though it's not even as intense as it will be. So I think part of it is, look, when you're being attacked from the left and the energy in the Democratic Party is on the left, your natural instinct is going to be to defend yourself. But the answers that he's going to have on those issues are not going to be satisfactory answers to progressives. So he is sort of stuck. He's stuck between the human response of defending yourself, which probably wouldn't help him politically, or sort of letting the attacks stick and not damaging yourself further. Yeah. I think that's probably what you're seeing, is that he's just a bit demoralized by this circumstance that he's in.
Well, and okay, let's go with this CNN poll, because they also polled on a couple of the issues that these candidates talked about, and I think I read 59% of Americans were against the idea of giving free health care to illegal immigrants. Matt, when you boil down the issues that all these Democrats were agreeing on both nights, to me, it has to be great news for the president and great news for the Republican Party, because most of America, when you have 60% of people saying no to what every major Democrat agreed to on that stage, that's great news for the RNC, is it not?
Yeah, look, that's the other takeaway, I think, and I think you're right to point it out. Look, Trump had a good week last week, and less so for anything he did, and more so for the positions the Democrats were taking in that first debate. And I don't see them sort of wising up to that reality anytime soon. I think one of the challenges the Democrats have is right now, these polls appear to show different Democratic candidates beating Trump. And so that doesn't really force their voters to think about electability or think about being more reasonable, more mainstream, more moderate. They may think they can nominate a far left candidate because, quote, anyone can beat Trump in their eyes. So I do think they're taking a range of positions that are making them unelectable, not just the health care to legal immigrants position, but certainly the Medicare for All position, which I think only has 27% support once people understand that it requires mandates ending the private health care industry, for people who get it from their employer, which would affect somewhere between 180 million and 200 million people. So, I mean, there was that great, I don't know if you saw it, I'm sure you did, it was on Twitter all over the place last week. There was that great cover in the New York Post where, on the question where they're all raising their hand, it says, "Who wants to lose to Trump?" Right. And I do think there's something to that. Look, with Trump, based on where Trump's numbers appear to be right now, he is going to have to. His best path to reelection is going to be to convince the majority of the country that the Democratic nominee is worse than he is. It's going to be sort of a search and destroy mission in some ways politically. We'll see what the economy is. We'll see how his poll numbers. His poll numbers have been very stable for the first 2.5 years. He's been in the high 30s to mid 40s almost the entire time, basically. So he's trading in a very narrow range. But the Democrats are going to make it easier for him to argue that they are extreme and that they're outside the mainstream and that they would take the country in the wrong direction with the positions they're taking. And so I think the debates are going to continue to push them further left. And obviously, they're taking pretty solid positions that are going to be very hard to wiggle out of once they have a nominee.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt, tell folks how they can sign up for your newsletter and also your latest podcast.
Yeah, the newsletter is called Must Read Texas. We take all the top news from around the state of Texas, put it in one clean, easy-to-read email, and send it out to over 3,000 subscribers every weekday morning. It's a great resource. If you can check it out and sign up for a free one-week trial, or a monthly subscription start at $3.50 a month. Mustreadtexas.com is the website. The podcast is called Mac on Politics. The most recent episode, I'm proud to say, is with George Will, the Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist and author of the new bestseller, The Conservative Sensibility, a fascinating conversation with him. You can find that in the iTunes Store, on Google Play, on Stitcher, on Spotify, and on the web at maconpoliticspodcast.com.
All right. As always, Matt, appreciate your time. Enjoy your Independence Day weekend.
Same to you. Take care.
Have a good one. That's Matt Mackowiak here on the Chad Hasty Show, KFYO.